Turn it a bit more on him.
and fellow
Yeah, okay.
seekers of silence
And then when it happens, you bring it back.
in a distracted world.
All the best.
Welcome to this book inauguration of Source of Silence, Mon Niyam, written by Sirshree on behalf of Tej Gyan Foundation. I want to invite all of you. My name is Krishna Iyer. I'm one of the trustees of Tej Gyan Foundation. I'm on the boards and of several public limited companies, NGOs, etc. Most of all, I've been privileged, humbled with the opportunity to translate some of Sirshree's books and be a part of the growth of Tej Gyan Foundation. So once again, a warm welcome. We are going to begin today with a meditation. We are going to pause, we are going to create some noise. बुक का नाम सोर्स ऑफ साइलेंस है, मगर थोड़ा नॉइस क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, रेडी? बिकॉज जब शोर है तो ही साइलेंस का वैल्यू पता चलेगा और लगे आप थोड़ा सेहत भी ठीक कर लेंगे. विल आल्सो वर्क ऑन आवर हेल्थ. सो आई एम गोइंग टू इनवाइट यू टू जॉइन मी इन अ meditation called as vowel breathing. Okay? In vowel breathing, we will inhale, and as we exhale, we are going to say a vowel loudly. Alright? Yeah? So, 5 vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Let's start with A first. Is it okay? We'll all inhale, and when you say, we are going to exhale. First time, don't do it, look at me. Kijiye na. Okay? Like that. Okay? So now this time, everybody together we will do this. Alright? So go ahead, take a deep inhale. कौशल्या and others थोड़ा और जोर से, ठीक है? So कुछ लोग ऐसे करें. We are watching you. Okay. So the next one we do is E. Ready? So take a deep breath. Thank you. I'm going to skip one vowel, which is I. ओम का, आमीन का, एमेन का जो सबसे important है, O and U. So we will do now O. Alright, ready? So just do O. A, E, I नहीं करेंगे, O करने वाले. Ready? Everybody take up बहुत जोर अच्छी तरह से करना. और जब O करेंगे, थोड़ी बहुत यहाँ पर चीखें, खांसियाँ बढ़ जाएगी. It's normal. It releases something. So that's fine. Everybody do that. Now we take a deep breath in. Thank you. Like this, you can practice A, E, I, O, U every day, at least once. A powerful scientific breathing practice. But I want to ask you right now, those of you feeling calm, sharp, feeling calm. Thank you. So I want to invite all of you to be fully focused on it. Let this not be just another book release function we are at. I want to invite all of us to hold space for each other, to be truly inside. Can we do that? Yes? And as we get in touch with ourselves and with the content that we offer, that's my invitation to all of you. The book's name is Source of Silence. Can we all attempt to embody it? The book, The Source of Silence, is written by Sirshree. Can you put the slide, please? It's written by Sirshree. He is a spiritual teacher and author. I will talk about the book a little more. Sirshree is the author of more than 100 books translated in almost every Indian language. Sirshree's teaching and pointing is that all paths that lead to truth, they begin differently. कोई ज्ञान मार्ग से करेगा, कोई जप मार्ग से करेगा, कोई तप मार्ग से, but they all end at the same place. And just before they end, there is a beautiful thing called as understanding. The same understanding dawns, which is what Sirshree calls as Tej Gyan. So that's why our foundation is called Tej Gyan Foundation. All of Sirshree's books point to this wisdom that dawns, whichever is our path. Silence is one such. Meditation is one such. So I invite all of you to visit our stall and join us as well to see various other books of Sirshree. I will talk about the book, the contents right towards the end. We'll also play a video to that effect. Can we go back to the previous slide? I now request that before I do that, I want to take an opportunity for all of us to experience something to our next speaker, who's our guest of honor. In the end, I will also be playing a video from Sirshree. It's a 1-hour session. So we'll end by about 6:30, 6:35. जो आप 6:30 बजे लेकर जाएंगे, you will take with you a powerful exercise mentioned in chapter 15 of the Source of Silence book. In English, it's chapter 15. In Hindi, it's near that chapter. I wouldn't know the exact chapter number. I would invite you to join me today at around 6:15 when I play that practice. I play a video. And all of us are going to take back that practice so that you can continue to experience the source of silence. But before that, Professor P.J. Charya, Dr. Charya, will address all of us. He is our guest of honor, followed by our chief guest, Professor Bijlani. So I will, of course, read about Professor Charya. We invited him to take us through his understanding of the book, anything else he wants to share. But also because one of the things that Professor Charya is known for in IIT Delhi, he's a professor in IIT Delhi, is that people enjoy his classes and workshops and his programs, mainly his lectures, for the amount of practicality he brings, for the amount of joy he embodies. I feel proud to call him a dear friend and very grateful that he accepted to be the guest of honor here. So here is a little bit about BJ that I will talk about. Professor Charya is a faculty member at IIT Delhi. While his basic training is in experimental materials science, but over the last 20 years, he has worked on diverse areas such as traditional knowledge systems, design for sustainability, ecological sanitation, appropriate housing, and joyous leadership. I haven't met anyone else more knowledgeable in the area of sustainability than him. But he also inspires entrepreneurs. In his recent Shark Tank episode, there is a product called a $0. That is something that Professor Charya has inspired. And it's a product that helps a lot of people. It helps us have environmental practices in India, but also helps entrepreneurs come to areas such as Shark Tank. As I already said, he's a wonderful speaker. He's an expert in experiential learning. And several students have been inspired to reach their highest potential, entrepreneurship, leadership through Dr. Charya's work. He was awarded the Teaching Excellence Award by IIT Delhi in 2011. Professor Charya taught and researched at the Arizona State University as a Fulbright Scholar in 2012-2013. In addition to IIT Delhi, he is much loved by students at BITS Pilani, IIT Kharagpur, and School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He is an author of several patents, publications, technical manuals, and various such publications. In his research group, Frugal Innovation Joy Lab, research scholars from diverse disciplines work closely with communities of farmers, artisans, and forest dwellers to collaborate deeply, to, to work on culturally acceptable and time-tested innovative solutions. So that's a little bit about Professor Charya. Without further ado, I invite him to please address us. Thank you.
Very good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Good talk.
Yeah. So, sometimes the introductions create a big wall. In this book, there is talk about a very interesting wall that many of us are familiar with. The younger people here probably, and the not so younger people in body here must have heard about some song which is a famous rock song called The Wall. Any of you heard about the song with the lyrics and the words The Wall in it? Anybody? किसी ने सुना है कोई गाना बहुत मशहूर गाना है, बहुत प्रसिद्ध गाना है, and it talks about a wall. ऐसा कोई गाना किसी ने सुना? Anybody? I'm just trying to find out whether somebody remembers that time when they were 17, 18 years old, 16 years old. गुजरा हुआ ज़माना याद नहीं आ रहा? भाई साहब को याद नहीं आ रहा? गाँव में थे। हाँ, गाँव में थे। किसी को याद आ रहा है?
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall.
Okay, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Okay, she went back, right up to kindergarten. Wonderful. Yeah, anybody else here? Another brick in the wall. Yeah, our friend, exactly got telepathically, she got what I was talking about. So sometimes, these long introductions, and it's like Professor Bijlani, when Krishna Iyer asked him, how should I introduce you and so on, he said, shorter the better, Sometimes the introduction can create a big wall. Like the mind sometimes can create a big wall. This book says that, sometimes the mind or the ego can create a very big wall between the reality of the world and how I see it. Yeah? So the first thing that I have to do is to dismantle the wall that Krishna built by introducing, if I had not worn this colorful costume, I decided to wear a little more colorful costume today. Because, life is full of colors, though you can see only a few of them here, isn't it? But life is full of colors, and it's a beautiful journey we are all on. And sometimes you must have found yourself, थोड़ा हिंदी में करेंगे क्योंकि मैंने अंग्रेजी में सवाल पूछा तो भाई साहब ने जवाब दिया कि हम गाँव में थे उस टाइम, तो शायद कहीं छूटता जाए तो थोड़ा हिंदी का भी प्रयोग करेंगे, थोड़ा कुछ चुटकुला भी सुनाएंगे, या क्योंकि this author Sirshree, he is of course known for very powerful content, but he is also known for his stories and for his wisdom and his wit and his humor. Yeah, how many of you have read any book by Sirshree? Have read a book, and is there a story that is Krishna is raising his hand? Is there a story or a joke or a one-liner that has stayed with you for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Yeah, is there? Anybody? Has something stayed with you? Because it was said in such a powerful manner, in the form of a story, कहानी के तौर पे, या चुटकुले के तौर पे, या हंसी मजाक के तौर पे, कई चीजें, बहुत गंभीर चीजें तेजगुरु सरस्वती ने कही है, शायद आप लोगों ने प्रवचन के माध्यम से सुना या किताब के माध्यम से पढ़ा, है ना? या प्रत्यक्ष मिले तब आपका कुछ विचार सेवा आपने दी, तब आपको मिलने का मौका मिला, तब आपने कोई सवाल पूछा तो उसका जवाब मिला. So sometimes the chutkulas are more powerful than huge books published by Gita Press, isn't it? Yeah, this is World of Wisdom. This book is published by World of Wisdom. And I have several books from Gita Press in my home, because I come from the a very traditional family. बहुत पारंपरिक परिवार से मैं आता हूँ और घर में बहुत पांडित्य था, बहुत संस्कृत की परंपरा थी घर में। यहाँ पे कोई नया यंग संस्कृत स्कॉलर भी बैठे हुए हैं जो अभी एनरोल हुए हैं बीए संस्कृत प्रोग्राम में, है ना। तो प्रचंड संस्कृत की एक परंपरा है देश में और उसमें कई सारी कहानियां। आप उस ग्रंथ को देखोगे या मूल को देखोगे तो बहुत सारी कहानियां। आपने कई कहानियां सुनी होगी, नचिकेत और यम का डायलॉग सुना होगा किसी ने मृत्यु के बारे में, तो उसमें कई तत्व छुपे हुए हैं, बहुत गहरे तत्व छुपे हुए हैं। ऐसे ही कई बहुत ही गहरे तत्व इस किताब में आपको मिलेंगे जो बहुत सरल तरीके से प्रस्तुत किया गया है, बहुत ही सरल एक्सेसिबल तरीके से प्रस्तुत किया गया है। अंग्रेजी और हिंदी में उपलब्ध है। और पिछले 4-5 दिन जब से सतीश जी मेरे को दिख नहीं रहे, जब से सतीश जी ने किताब अरेंज की मेरे लिए, I spent a lot of time going through the book in great detail, line by line and word by word. और कई बार बहुत तेजी से पढ़ सका और कई बार मेरे को बहुत रुक के भी पढ़ना पड़ा। और उसमें एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सीन है इस किताब में, अर्ली स्टेजेस में किताब में एक सीन है कि कई बार हमें किसी चीज का अनुभव करना है, तैरना सीखना है, नदी का अनुभव करना है या समुद्र का स्नान करना है और हमें डुबकी लगाना है। और उस डुबकी की बात हुई है कि मौन में कैसे डुबकी लगाया जाए। और मौन में यदि मेरे को डुबकी लगाना है या मान लीजिए मुझे तैरना है और मैं बहुत भारी जीन्स पहन के हूँ और ऊपर लेदर का जैकेट पहन के हूँ और बड़ा सुंदर टोपी पहन के हूँ और उस पर कई एल्युमिनियम और कॉपर के बटन्स लगे हुए हैं, तो शायद तैरना इतना सुलभ नहीं होगा। तालाब के किनारे कुछ चीजें उतारनी पड़ेगी, एकदम खाली होना पड़ेगा, तब तैरने का मजा आएगा। मछली की तरह मैं तैर पाऊंगा। I can become a dolphin, I can become a beautiful fish in the ocean, but I cannot swim or enjoy the swim very well if I'm carrying a lot. Maybe I can wear a swimming trunk or a nice bikini, but I cannot wear 30 kilos of stuff. I am 55 kilograms and assume that I will have a great swim. So Sirshree talks in this book about becoming pure and empty before you jump into the utter stillness of silence. So he talks about it in the early part of the book कि खाली होना है और थोड़ा शुद्ध होना है, प्योर होना है, पवित्र होना है, तभी इस गहरे सन्नाटे को, साइलेंस को, मौन का पूरा हम लोग आनंद उठा पाएंगे। तो अभी कृष्णा ने थोड़ी देर पहले he said that to understand silence, to experience silence, this noise is very good, isn't it? Some of you may be getting disturbed by this noise, but this noise is very good because in the middle of this noise you can do a small dubki into your silence and you should be grateful for this little bit of noise which is there. Be grateful for this noise because it allows me to create a contrast with the silence that I would like to be deeply connected with. So, I think the book makes a very powerful argument about the cosmic orchestra that we are part of. Many other traditions, in Indian tradition, we often talk about the cosmic leela. Yeah, we talk about the leela. You know, आप किसी गांव से मिलोगे, जैसे अपने सज्जन बैठे हुए हैं इधर, इनको पूछोगे क्या चल रहा है, हम कुछ बोलेंगे
लीला के बारे में आप बात कर रहे हैं। लीला हम सब सुन रहे हैं।
Yeah, so you can ask him and he says, "Sab Prabhu ki leela." So this word leela is one very important word in Indian tradition. Another word which is very important is also a feminine word, which comes often in this book, also a little bit. That other word is again a four-letter word called Maya. How many of you have heard of these two women? We have all heard of Durga, we have heard of Lakshmi, we have heard of Saraswati. I'm sure some of you have heard of Leela also. And some of you have heard of Maya also. And sometimes we say this And I was actually transferred from one back of the Beyond place in 2005. I was transferred to Delhi from IIT Kharagpur. और जब मैं IIT खड़गपुर से दिल्ली ट्रांसफर हुआ, मेरे एक मित्र ने कहा, जो बहुत आध्यात्म में बहुत घुसे हुए थे, उन्होंने कहा, खबरदार आप दिल्ली जा रहे हो, दिल्ली माया नगरी है. Do you all understand why? He said it. He must have told me in 2005 that Delhi is a Maya नगरी. और कुछ आप जो है चीजों को अपने पास रखिए. देखो ये माया नगरी जो है, आपको पता नहीं आप कहाँ पहुंच जाओगे इस माया नगरी. So it's a very interesting term, this Maya. Normally we say that we should be very careful of Maya. इससे बच के रहना है. माया का लोग कई बार इंटरनेट में जाते हैं तो आपको टाइप करना पड़ता है www. किसी ने टाइप किया? Anybody, you have to go to a website. Sometimes you have to type www, right? So in the old days of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or older masters, so they used to say that try to keep away from intoxication. You know, one W is intoxication. Intoxication is not only liquor. Too much of obsession with work is also intoxication. Don't be so intoxicated with work. Don't be obsessed with wealth. And don't be obsessed with the other gender. WWW. Women, wealth, and wine. Yeah? So that is intoxication. Those are three things that you can call Maya, isn't it? So every day we encounter Maya. How many millions of times when we do that? www.youtube.com, www.instagram.com, .facebook.com, and it keeps scrolling. So there is enough Maya available on every screen. And we try to escape this Maya. We try to create some distance because too much is not good, isn't it? Too much means that you need some pudin hara, some garlic pearls, some gelusil, some daijin. Mr. Bijlani is a doctor. He'll talk to you about what too much Maya can do for you and what kind of pharmacy you may have to visit. So Maya is not only, it does not only trouble you through vice, these vices of anger, jealousy, greed, etc. Too much of virtue also, too much of attachment to virtue. That I am a very virtuous person, I am a very wise person, I am a very knowledgeable person. That can also trap you into Maya. So Maya can trouble you both as wise, and if I consider that I am extremely virtuous person, that can also, Maya can come back and hit me in a different way. So, very powerful book which talks about how the mind works and how attachment is created. One of the very interesting components of this book is that we all know that, when we are 17, 18, we just crossed this very interesting date of February 13th, isn't it? Only 13th, I'm not mentioning the date after February 13th. And sometimes we can get very attached around February 13th. So, but by the end of February, I think we lose our attachment a little bit. I call it IIT, I say that, IITians are on a 4-year integrated BTech fishing project. Right, the fishing lines extend right from IIT Delhi to Delhi University. But most often their fishing projects end in failure. Yeah? I'm talking about IITians, those of you who can understand this joke, that they are 4 years they are fishing for something in Delhi University. Our friend is telling this joke. Yeah, but it ends in utter failure. So you go towards a little reduced attachment, and then you are shaken. The attachment gets shaken through many events in life. And some things can take you to a little more detached state of life. You are detached from attachment. The very interesting thing that Sirshree talks about in this book is to be detached from detachment as well. Not to get attached to detachment. I'm a very detached person, and if I say that a million times every day, then I may end up getting attached detachment, which is again a little dangerous thing, and that is how Maya comes back and hit you, that you're a very virtuous person, but Maya can come back and hit you that, you're very arrogant because you're attached or detached. Yeah? So it's very interesting. So, midway through the book, he talks about unconditionally waiting in silence for the unfolding. Yeah? Can we wait unconditionally, in silence for that which is unfolding in our life? And this silence comes from practice of both freedom from attachment and freedom from aversion. So, a very powerful book right up to the 14th or 15th chapter. Krishna talked about a turning point in this book also, which is very experiential. There is a meditation. I think it is going to play out towards the end of today's book release program. And the book also goes on challenge one of the very root beliefs that get encoded in our lives during the process of schooling, education. I teach at IIT Delhi, and आप लोगों को पता है दिल्ली निवासी अधिकतर दिल्ली निवासी कुछ लोग पूना से हैं, किसी और शहर से हैं कोई दिल्ली पूना के अलावा? Anybody else? Any other city, town, village?
Banda UP.
Banda. He's from Banda. Okay, Bundelkhand. You're from Patna. Okay, any other city, town, village, hamlet, forest? Yeah. So anywhere in India you go, there is always some other child, some other family we point out and say, "वो देखो कितना बढ़िया पढ़ाई कर रहा है, शर्मा जी का लड़का IIT पहुंच गया और तुम जो है गुल्ली डंडा खेल रहे हो." This often happens. We always point out to somebody and say, "वो कितना लायक है, तुम कितने नालायक हो." It's very interesting. I heard this in a discourse by Sirshree many years ago, where he said, "नालायक ही लायक है, नालायक ही लायक है और नालायक ही लायक है." Very interesting. He talks about, because many times this label that we take with ourselves, this costume that I am an IITian, I am a successful person, I am a CEO, I raised 1 crore in this funding cycle on Shark Tank, etc. It becomes the costume with which we get attached. भयंकर अटैचमेंट एक कॉस्ट्यूम के साथ हो जाता है, भयंकर चिपकाव हो जाता है, और उससे फिर निकलना, उससे मुक्ति पाना काफी कठिन हो जाता है. So the book goes on and talks about how we get very conditioned into seeing, into thinking, into believing, and how these beliefs need to be questioned and how we need to awaken to the real. And it also talks about many of the senses. इंद्रियों की बात तो परंपरा में होती ही है कि ये कर्मेंद्रिय है, ज्ञानेंद्रिय है, हम इससे महसूस करते हैं, सुनते हैं, छूते हैं, जीभ से होता है, वगैरह वगैरह. So here, one of the things that is talked about is that there is a sense mechanism. विचारों के द्वारा हम लोग दुनिया को हम लोग महसूस करते हैं, हम लोग कुछ अभिव्यक्ति की उसके बात करते हैं, कई तरीके से क्रिया से करते हैं, मुख से करते हैं, वाणी से करते हैं. So the concept of the self is introduced in this book very powerfully. That self is the witness for all thoughts. We are all thinking, but who's witnessing this whole thoughts? Because sometimes I'm thinking very highly of myself, sometimes I don't think anything of myself, and the self is there in the corner laughing at this whole tamasha that is happening, the different costumes that we wear. It's a witnessing message. And interestingly, many times we are trying to use the mind or the senses to know the self, but the mind is incapable, because the mind wishing to know the self is the same as trying to see or experience music through your eyes. So you will need some ears, but the wrong sense organ will not work. So the mind fails utterly in the journey to the self. So one needs to transcend the mind and experience this, that we are actually beingness, we are actually this thing called the self. On page 136, if you ever pick up the copy of this book and read there, he talks about what is the greatest comedy of our lives. He says, forgetting and trying to remember when one is already what one is seeking. Very powerful statement that we forget and we are trying to remember when you already are that which you are seeking. So we are constantly through life, we are seeking beyond success. When we achieve all this IIT, IIM, investment, a good 5 BHK apartment, we are still seeking something. And what are we seeking? That which we already are. So it's a great comedy that you are seeking something which you can already experience so easily, it's so close to you. And he also talks about the very simple secret to reach this source of silence, which is, he says, very simple word secret is be open. Be open, observe, immerse and engage, and be open to yourself in totality. Neither hold on to action, which is doing, and nor refrain from doing, nor go into inaction. So neither this nor that, just be open, be receptive, and this reality of silence and the source of silence will open itself to you. Going a little bit further, he talks about something that the Aurobindo ashram or the thought of Aurobindo also talks about. He says that the mother and Sri Aurobindo often talk about it, that one of the purposes of human life is to become a perfect instrument for the divine. Become a perfect instrument in service of the divine. So just become an instrument, and the music will play by itself. You don't need to play the music. You are not the player of the music. You are only an instrument, and nature will play the music through you. So here the invitation is that the body and the mind is an instrument that will be played by the divine will, and we serve as instruments for the divine's expression of silence. And the silence will eventually grow and help us to reach this state of surrender, complete surrender, where we welcome every scene as an unfolding, as a happening. होनी, जिसे हिंदी में, दिल्ली की भाषा में हम लोग होनी कहते हैं, दिल्ली पंजाबी में, everything is a happening. It's an unfolding, and we can become witness to that. And this is what Sirshree refers in this book as Leela. He also talks about many sort of interesting episodes of rituals and worship, and sometimes the essence is forgotten. So he tries to say, can we bring back the essence along with Tera Tujhko Arpan? He says that many times we do this thing to Bhagwan. It says Tera Tujhko Arpan, but I do not offer my ego. I keep it to myself, because that is the most precious thing that I do not like to give away. So he is making an invitation to you to try and see whether along with the Tera Tujhko Arpan we can also offer the ego, which is the hindrance to reach the source of silence, and then to experience prem, mon and anand. So he very clearly categorizes the mind as the obstacle to complete surrender, and he talks about being open, letting go, not to be attached, to surrender completely. And he says that solutions to the most complex problems in your life will emerge from the silence if you are able to access it. Finally, he talks about the various states of samadhi. He talks about Jnaneshwar. He also talks about Jesus and pain and suffering and divine will. He talks about Ramakrishna Paramahansa in this book. He talks about many great masters. He talks about Savikalp and Nirvikal Samadhi and Sanjeevan Samadhi. And he talks about marveling, wondering, witnessing the love, bliss, peace in your life. So he also gives some very specific tools as to how to live a life in Maya Nagari. Suppose you are living in Maya Nagari, which I came to in 2005. How do you live in this Maya Nagari? What kind of chashma should you wear? How should you look at a Rajesh Aghi or a Alka Aghi or a Satish Kataria? Yeah? How do you look at the camera? Can the camera be a reminder? Can the mic be a reminder? Can your spectacles be a reminder as to how to access this reality and how to discover your highest purpose? Finally, he ends by saying, and I want to read it out, a small passage which may be a beautiful way for me to hand over the mic back to Krishna. He says that he often talks about Kulfi ki dandi. Those of you who have heard of Sirsshree's pravachans will say that Kulfi ki dandi mein mat atko, Kulfi खा लो और डंडी फेंक दो. शब्दों में मत अटको, किसी भी चीज में मत अटको. वो तो सीढ़ी है. सीढ़ी से चढ़ो और आगे बढ़ो. So he says, words are very glorious. Words can become obstacles also. Do not get trapped in words. But he says about words that I am that silence which is present behind each word. मैं वो मौन हूँ जो हर शब्द के पीछे हूँ, हर विचार के पीछे हूँ. I am the hidden nothingness that is present not only between two words but present as the eternal backdrop of everything. So this reminds me of the two lines by Robert Frost, and I'll end with that. Robert Frost says, we dance around in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. So the secret is very close to us, and sometimes we're dancing around in the ring on February 13th and 15th, not realizing the secret that is so close to us. I hope you will all take that dubki into this amazing ocean of silence, which is so blissful. And I hope you will become a copy of this book in English or Hindi or in one of the many languages it's going to be translated in. Thank you so much for having me with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. As always, anything that Vijay says is so powerful. I had requested Vijay to take us through an experience, and his whole talk became an experience where he brought together so many beautiful quotes from the book, thoughts from the book. He talked about 3 W's. Yeah? Sirshree also talks about 3 other W's. He says that instead of the 3 W's Vijay talked about, a powerful way to experience source of silence is the 3 W's of wait, watch with wonder. So just wanted to remind everybody about that. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to invite all of you to, and Vijay also talked about emptiness. Sirshree also reminded me of a powerful quote from Sirshree, and this is a little bit Bombaya Hindi. He says, "Khali ek kaam karo, khud ko khali karo." So thank you, Vijay, for reminding us about these things. I want to invite all of you to get ready for our address by our chief guest. And the way we are going to do that is to join me in a 1-minute meditation by Sirshree. It's a very powerful meditation. How many of you have this problem? That whenever you try to meditate, you get to the source of silence, you get a lot of thoughts. कितनों को है कि बहुत सारे विचार आते हैं meditation के time पर, हाथ ऊपर करें, meditate कर नहीं पाते. Raise your hands nicely. Yeah. अगर ऐसा है तो. So I'm going to request all of you to close your eyes. Please join me. Close your eyes. And I want to request all of you to say, मुझे और विचार चाहिए. I want more thoughts. Do that. I want more thoughts. Please open your eyes. क्या हुआ? How many of you got a lot of thoughts? Nobody.
हाथ बंद हो गए.
Thoughts बंद हो गए. And what did he say? I want more thoughts. So many such powerful exercises are in the book. We invite you to take a look at that. The reason I did this is, I met our chief guest, Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, Professor Bijlani today. What I was struck by was the serenity, the calm. This dynamic being arising from this no thoughts. So I think it's best that you experience it. Dr. Ramesh Bijlani is a medical doctor, educationist, writer, inspirational speaker, teacher, scientist, and above all a person committed to using his talents for touching the hearts and lives of his fellow beings. Silence से क्या क्या उत्पन्न नहीं हो सकता is a great expression of it. With an MBBS and MD from AIMS and a master's course in nutrition from MIT Boston, Dr. Bijlani has spent more than 30 years as a faculty at AIMS. In 1992, he started going into the depths of yoga, especially the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And he was also conferred by an honorary doctorate in yoga by S. Vyas, Bangalore in 2006. Dr. Bijlani has written several books. He has been staying and working at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch since 2007. तेज ज्ञान फाउंडेशन एक मंच बनाना चाहता है जिसमें सारे संस्थाएं works together for the upliftment of society. As a part of that, we're very, very privileged to have somebody from the Aurobindo Ashram. Somebody also who embodies science, spirituality, and practicality. Dr. Bidlan. Can you all give a big hand, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Professor Cheriar has established a very high benchmark, and I will not be able to sustain your attention to the same extent. Brothers and sisters, boys and girls, it's a privilege to be here in front of this enlightened group, having a deep interest in spirituality, and that too on the release of one of the books by one of the major spiritual teachers today, Sirshree, and the book is The Source of Silence, as I just mentioned. And I have only glanced through his flagship book, which is very popular, which has been around for a long time, The Source, and then this is a sequel to that, The Source of Silence. And what I find is that his magnetic pull, which has drawn to him thousands of persons from all over the world, is because of his great clarity, simplicity, and practicality, as was pointed out, and above all, reliability, because he embodies experience, which is far better than knowledge. Knowledge can be a beginning, but ultimately it's the experience that makes us really know something, and all this put together makes him highly acceptable. And that is seems to be the secret of how he has been able to draw so many, and why he has that charisma, which primarily arises from something unspoken, the presence that he would have because of the experience that he had long back, and then felt motivated to disseminate some of the distillate of the wisdom that that experience gave him to his fellow beings, so that they could also make further progress and live lives which are happier, healthier, and more meaningful. In the preface to his book, he has talked about a monk who went about talking about spiritual truths, but then he was new to that town or city, and people responded differently. Some ignored him, some ridiculed him, some judged him as someone who is insane, and some reported him to the king and got him arrested. But then there were a few who felt that probably he's talking about something sensible. They tried to understand him. They couldn't fully understand him, but they had a vague feeling that he's pointing to something deep, profound, and truthful. Now, why is there such a vast range of responses to exactly the same thing? Now, that is because we arrive in this world at different levels of consciousness, which in turn is the result of how much of the journey our soul has completed in the previous lives. That's what makes a difference. And that is why it makes persons like Sirshree take deep interest in spiritual truths in early childhood. And then later on, the journey just accelerates, picks up, and then they are here ready to teach the rest, so that the rest could also benefit from this. I'm not trying to say that some of us are born inferior to others. Those who arrive at a level of consciousness where this comes naturally to them, they start asking deep existential questions in early childhood and take these questions very seriously. It's not that they are in any way fundamentally superior to the rest of humanity. I'm not trying to say that. But in this particular point in time, they are at a further stage in this spiritual journey, and it's quite possible that a few lives earlier they were at the same level as the rest of their fellow beings today, the average one, And the so-called average person today will, after a few lives, probably be where they are today. So that person will also die. So that is how the cycle goes on. So it's not, I'm not being judgmental about different types of people, but I'm saying this vast spectrum in consciousness does exist. The book itself has 5 parts. The first is recognizing the source of silence, which means even before one has the knowledge, to actually accept that such a thing exists. And that's not difficult for most of us because we have some sort of a dim awareness that we are not just the body and the mind, kuch to aur bhi hai. Okay? So that kuch aur hai, that feeling inspires that faith. But then there are many obstacles which he talks about in the second and the third part. The second part, many obstacles which may come from outside, inside and so on. And the third part, particularly the obstacles which come in the form of the traps of the mind. So the more intellectual you are, the more problems you have because the more questions you raise, the more doubts you will have. But then there comes the awakening. That's the fourth part. Now awakening means that that hidden aspiration which we arrive at in this world, but to some with a stronger aspiration to look into these deeper truths of existence, that wakes up. And that can happen in a million ways. There is no single rule for awakening. And then the person embarks on the journey and actually experiences this source. Source, is a very acceptable word these days. But the word really doesn't matter whether we call it God or whether we call it the divine or the infinite or the absolute reality or the source. Ultimately, it means the same thing. But the source is a very acceptable word today because that is the source of everything. That is what has given rise to everything. Purnat Purna Madachyate. The Purna saying Purna Nikla hai. So that is the source. I picked up one beautiful gem from this book, and that was, I await that desire which will free me from all desires. Desires are a source of misery. Lord Buddha said that 2,500 years ago. Not only unfulfilled desires, fulfilled desires are also a source of great misery. As people, most of you are pretty experienced in this group, so you would have realized that even fulfilled desires don't bring the happiness that we expect from them. Neither the quality of the happiness is the same, nor is it sustained. And but then that only gives way to the desire which can weed out, which can banish all these ordinary desires. And what is that? That is the desire to move closer to the divine, or to discover the source, or to pursue something which will give us a true insight into the universe, the material universe, ourselves, or if one were to simply, what we are looking for is a relationship between the Jiva Jagat and Jagadish. Jagadish, the creator, Jiva, the individuals, and the Jagat, the material universe. So Jiva, Jagat and Jagadish. Or as Sri Aurobindo says that basically mankind looks for 3 things. One is a goal. The goal is the source of the divine. The other is a method to experience it. And that actually can be summed up one umbrella term, the yoga. Different schools of yoga are basically aiming at that. So we look for a goal that is to realize that highest truth, the source, and the method to reach there, that is yoga. And the third is a way in which we can relate to the rest of the creation, particularly our fellow beings. Which means we look for some principles, general principles, which may be flexible, but at the same time we feel that they should be binding on us. Which means that we actually appreciate a certain boundary and binding, and that is what we are looking for, and that is what this knowledge helps us give. This knowledge which we get through the practice, the knowledge which now becomes experiential instead of remaining only theoretical knowledge. So the knowledge of the goal may be there from books, but that doesn't become real to us unless we follow the method which will take us there, and that is yoga. And when that knowledge is experiential through yoga, of course it's not an all or none process that today I didn't know and tomorrow I will know. It's a journey. But then as that knowledge unfolds, as that reveals itself more, as that knowledge is revealed to us more and more, we discover that our relationship with others starts changing, the way we behave with others changing. Which means that essentially we are talking about spirituality, and spirituality is an inside-out process. This knowledge and experience brings about an inner change, and that inner change starts reflecting in outer life. So that is what this process is about. So this desire to get into that, to get that experience, highest truth, to get to that highest truth, start approaching it, is a desire that can banish all other desires. And not only when we get there that we have the blissful experience, there is a joy and bliss in the pursuit itself. And that is what makes this journey long but still enjoyable. So long that it may not be completed in one lifetime, and still it is enjoyable. It's something like this. If we carry it like a burden, it will not be enjoyable. Huh? So just do what we are expected to do and enjoy it, instead of worrying when will I get there. Like, suppose you have to go by a train to Trivandrum, or what is now called Thiruvananthapuram. If you have to go there, you might have to spend 2 or 3 days in the train. But then if you start thinking, kab pahunchenge, when will it reach there, it will look burdensome. But if you start looking out of the window and enjoy the scenery and start talking to your co-passengers, then it will not appear burdensome. So basically, long journey has to be enjoyed. One does not have to be obsessed with the destination. Now, that aspiration, which can banish all desires, and that's why we call it an aspiration. In other words, aspiration is a desirable desire, which can oust all other desires. So, that aspiration may be basic, but to follow it up, we are differently made, and therefore different types of paths may suit us. And what are the paths we can use? Using our 3 basic instruments, the same instruments which hide this truth from us, because we are so we find those surface so real, the body and the mind. The mind having 2 aspects, feeling and thinking. So, or we can say the head, heart and hands, the 3 dimensions which Sirshree talks about, the 3 dimensions, the head, the intellect, heart, the feelings, and the hands for action. So, we have a preferred instrument. We all are made differently. So, we may start differently. Now, teachers like Sri Aurobindo or like Sirshree are meant more for the knowledge-oriented ones who prefer to make a beginning with some knowledge. But then Sirshree puts this knowledge in such a clear, simple and acceptable manner, in a practical manner, that people are probably most of the people are quite satisfied with that much knowledge, and then they start putting it into practice. In terms of the changes that they experience in their thoughts. That is one of the sort of things that he emphasizes. The greeting itself here is happy thoughts, and naturally happy thoughts can come only from someone who has gone through some sort of a transformation within. That change has already taken place, then only happy thoughts can come. The way is, there's a little story that goes like this, that somebody wanted apple juice, and then he was given an orange and told, now give me apple juice. If no, an orange can give you only orange juice. If you want apple juice, you have to have an apple. Now, which means that if you want good thoughts, you first have to go that inner change, because the type of inner change, which means that the extent to which your mind is being illumined by the source, or illumined by your deepest self, or illumined by your soul, it is that which will determine what type of thoughts you will be able to express. To what extent you have been able to break the barrier between the mind and that inner source. So, the source is always there, but we have to break that barrier or move the curtain. Like the sun is always there, but if our windows are closed and the curtain is drawn, it's not the fault of the sun. We have to move the curtain one side and open the window. Then the light will come in. So we have to do that same thing. The soul is always there, the source is always there, but our mind has to be illumined, both the feelings and the thoughts. And once the feelings and the thoughts have been illumined, the body is a docile instrument, it will do what it is told to do by the mind. So then all 3 are in sync. They work in unison. But then a beginning has to be made, and for the beginning, it is knowledge, and Sirshree puts it in clear and simple terms, which people find is enough of a base to continue further. Why I'm saying continue further is because one does not stop with knowledge, one does not stop with action, one does not stop with devotion. And in fact, these three instruments that we can use, the head, heart and hands, are only for making a beginning. By the end of the journey, or in fact even before the end, one has made sufficient progress. If one sticks to the path long enough and sincerely enough, one will start doing all the three. So the culmination of all is, even before we reach the truth and become so-called self-realized, even before that what happens is, the fusion of these three gives rise to enlightened action. That is, action which has been enlightened to some extent by some knowledge, which is important. Because otherwise I'll keep feeling, I have done this, I have done that, and I'm not getting enough recognition, I can do it better than others, and so on and so forth. What enlightens this action is the knowledge that I am not the doer, I am only an instrument of the divine, as was pointed out by Professor Cherry a few minutes back. So, it's enlightened action. But this enlightened action, when I do not even feel that I am the doer, and yet I am doing it, can become very burdensome. What lubricates it, what adds some rasa to it, joy to it, is devotion. So basically, you end with enlightened action lubricated by devotion. So that is how the three fuse. Now, I find in Sirshree's simple approach, which has a very vast appeal, and that's why so many people are drawn to it, very clear-cut sort of things laid down. Say so many sutras, so many mantras. Sutra number 1 is this, 2 is this, and then mantra 1, mantra 2, mantra 3, and so on. Which makes things very clear-cut and concrete. I come from a tradition which does just the opposite. Sri Aurobindo's tradition is just the opposite, where you are given only some very broad guidelines, and nothing is compulsory, nothing is forbidden. With using those general principles, each seeker carves out his or her own path. So there are two extremes. One gives you total freedom, which sometimes it is difficult to make full use of. The other gives you very concrete principles, which are more or less like rules to be followed, niyam. So the tradition is very different. But same time, as Sirshree says, that the beginning may be different. As I said, beginning can be the head, heart and hands. In Sri Aurobindo also draws seekers who are knowledge-oriented. Sirshree is also drawing those who are knowledge-oriented. But Sirshree's devotees seem to be satisfied with simple stuff. Those who want more challenge and have more time and inclination to digest complexities seem to turn to Sri Aurobindo. But the fact is, they're both starting with knowledge. But then even those who start with the devotion or with action, ultimately they reach the same truth, because truth is one. The total truth is one. We may be only looking at different aspects of it, and as science does quite often, but all paths ultimately culminate in one truth. Now, there seems to be a ferment, in fact, all over the world. And the number of people who are drawn to spirituality is growing. The number of people who are disregarding conventional organized religion, their number is increasing. So, religion is giving way to spirituality. And another thing that is happening is that a lot of young people are getting drawn to it. And I'm sure you also started quite young, and I can see some young people here. And in fact, in many such gatherings, I've had a very large number of young people. Not only they are being drawn to it, there's an observation which is being made that children are asking more and more deep existential questions far more frequently at a much younger age now. Which means occasionally a child might have asked in the past also, but now that is becoming a pretty common phenomenon. Children as young as 3 or 4 years of age start asking deep existential questions like, मैं आया क्यों हूँ दुनिया में? क्या करना है? Why am I here? You know, this type of questions young children are asking. And by the time they are teenagers, they are trying to take interest where they'll get more knowledge. Not only that, when it comes to career choice, they are trying to choose a career which will combine making a living with living a meaningful life, which generally translates into a career which will give them some avenue for doing something for others, which means they are looking beyond their little self, looking towards the self with a capital S. Looking towards that capital S means they are feeling a sense of connection, a sense of interrelatedness with others because the source is the same. Like say if you have a apple tree and you pack the apples in a box, the apples might forget that they belong to the same source. And the result is that one apple may feel that I am better than the apple next to me because I am more red. Another may feel I am better than the next one because I am more sweet. Yet a third one may feel I am better than the next one because I am bigger in size. Now this is what the ego is about. So if apples had egos, this is how they will behave. But what they are forgetting is that actually they came from the same source. So enlightened apples would feel a sense of interrelatedness rather than feel this wall between them because they came from the same source. And it is this that makes life much happier. So what Sirshree and the mother have visualized is, and this what I am talking about, the change in the world today, is in keeping with that vision which they gave us, that in the evolution of consciousness, now we are at a very critical juncture. Very soon, the human consciousness will take a major leap so that there will be a significantly large number of people who will have a higher level of consciousness than the average today. So the average itself will go up. And that level of consciousness translates into the way we behave, the way we interact with each other. And then the basic shift will be from being ego-driven, we'll become more love-driven. So if we, not that the spectrum will disappear, the spectrum of consciousness will stay, but the average will change. So it will shift towards the higher side. And when that happens, the affairs of the world will be run on the basis of that higher consciousness because the average, it is the majority or the average or the typical that determines how the world is run. So the world will be run by about the basis of the way people who are at that higher level, whose consciousness is shifted from the ego towards love. Ego is a dividing principle. Love is a uniting principle. Ego makes us feel that I am separate and distinct, me versus all the rest. Love makes us feel a sense of oneness with others. So that is the direction in which the world will shift. And one of the things that will happen as a part of that is that we move away from religions towards spirituality. And of course, new children will come who will be already prepared, will come prepared and to embark on a type of life which will take them in that direction. These are the children whom Sirshree was called in Savitri, the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. They have that sparkle in their eyes as if their eyes are sun-eyed, and what they will usher in is a marvelous dawn, sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. And what will these children do? They will be massive barrier breakers of the world. Because unless you break the older conventions, unless you get out of that rut which has kept us tied down, unless you get out of that conditioning which our mind has, so unless you get out of all this, you cannot change the world. We all want to progress, but we don't want change. That's the paradox. We resist change. Now, how can change come without progress? If progress means to being ahead tomorrow as compared to today, we have to change from how we are today. So change is inevitable, and since we are in for a major change, a shift in the level of consciousness from being ego-driven to love-driven is a major change. We should expect major changes, and therefore these children will be massive barrier breakers of the world. And that is what is also sometimes widening the generation gap. So generation gap, which is an old issue, is taking new dimensions, particularly when it's to choosing a career and choosing a partner. These are the two major areas where big conflicts are taking place because the parents and the children are looking at these things differently, and many of these children are actually those sun-eyed children who don't look at career and having a partner in the same way as has conventionally been looked at. So these are the massive barrier breakers of the world. So the number of seekers growing, those who want to take these deep existential questions seriously, and with the growth in the number of such people, the supply keeping pace with the demand, which is more and more spiritual teachers coming. Now, all this seems to be a part of that broader vision which Sirshree and the mother gave us about 100 years ago, and that is what makes me feel very optimistic when I come to such events. So we are all together, all working in the same direction. Our paths can be different, but the ultimate truth is one, and the goal is one, And it's not only for ourselves that we have to discover the source, it translates into that oneness, which in turn leads to love, and that is what will make the world a better place. I can end with again a line from Savitri, which comes almost towards the end of Savitri, and we consider the Mahavakya of Savitri. To feel love and oneness is to live, which means to live a life which is full of love, which has been inspired by oneness, is what truly living is about. That is what makes life meaningful. Thank you.
I now request the dignitaries on the dais to join me in releasing the book Source of Silence by Sirshree. As a vote of thanks, I am going to request all of you to join me in this simple, important aspect of giving gratitude. I'm deeply grateful to Professor Charya, to Professor Bijlani, and all the volunteers at the Ekyan Foundation to make this event happen. I had promised at the beginning that you can all look at a practical exercise. It's called Who Am I Now? It's on chapter 15. So every time we are looking at any confusion, you can do it now, what I'm going to do now. So with that, we will end the session. I'm going to request all of you to keep your back straight, close your eyes for a moment of silence. Now ask yourself a question, who am I now? Who am I being now? Are you stressed? Are you happy? What are you doing? Thank you. We are going to end the session with a small video. Please play the video. It's a 1-minute video. You can be seated here.
एक इंसान नौकरी करना चाहता है, उसको नौकरी चाहिए, ट्रेनिंग चाहिए। उसका मित्र जो फॉरेन कंट्री में रहता है उसको बुलाता है कि तुम्हें मैं नौकरी दिलाता हूँ, ट्रेनिंग देता हूँ, तुम आ जाओ। तो वो कहता ठीक है, कहाँ आ जाऊँ? वो जगह का पता लगाता है, यहाँ यहाँ आ जाओ, इस दिन पर आ जाओ, वहाँ फंक्शन चल रहा है, उसी जगह पर हम मिलेंगे। एक तय करते हैं जगह जो उसके लिए भी आसान हो और उसके लिए भी आसान हो। तो फंक्शन है इस दिन पर, इस दिन आ जाओ, 10 बजे आ जाओ। तो पर्सन पहुंचता है, मेरा उसमें पूछ लिया होता है, अगर मैं पहुंच जाऊँ और तुम नहीं हो तो फिर मैं कंफ्यूज हो जाऊंगा, तो मैं कैसे खुद को संभालूंगा उस वक्त। तो जो फॉरेन का मित्र था उसने कहा कि तुम कोई पोजीशन हो, कोई भी कुछ पूछे वगैरह, तो उसको एक ही शब्द कहना, वेन, वेन, WAIN। वेन शब्द कहा तो तुम्हारी समस्या सुलझ जाएगी, यानी फिर तुम्हें कोई परेशान नहीं करेगा। तो चलो कुछ तो कहा और वो पहुंच गया उस जगह, 10 बजे पहुंच गया। मगर समय की गड़बड़, जैसे लोग एक देश से दूसरे देश में जाते, समय का थोड़ा सा पैमाना अलग होता है। सुबह के 10 बजे कहा था, अगर रात के 10 बजे कहा था, समय का कन्फ्यूजन हुआ तो वो पहुंच गया सुबह के 10 बजे में, और उसका मित्र आने वाला है 10 बजे रात के समय में। और ये पहुंच गया है और देख रहा है मित्र तो मेरा नहीं, और कोई आके उसको कहता है अपनी भाषा में इधर क्यों खड़े हो, उधर जाओ, तो उसको एक शब्द मालूम है, वो नहीं कहता है, तो वो पर्सन ठीक ही करके चला जाता है। ये फंक्शन में घूम रहा है, वहाँ खाने के लिए चीज़ें रखी है, कोई चीज़ लेने खाने के लिए लेता है, तो कोई वेटर आकर उसको कुछ कहता है, भाषा उसको समझ में नहीं आ रही, तो ये वो कहता है तो वेटर चला जाता है। ये खाता है, पीता है, वहाँ पर और बहुत सारे मनोरंजन चल रहे हैं, वहाँ पर मेले में लोग अलग अलग तरह की व्यवस्था होती है। हर जगह जा रहा है, जहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम आया, कंफ्यूजन आया, वो नहीं देता है और उसको कोई कुछ नहीं देता। तो दिन भर ये चल रहा है, हर एक्टिविटी से जब तक उसका मित्र आए, मित्र जब पहुंचा तो उसने देखा बच्चों के साथ खेल रहा है, कई सारे बच्चे उसके मित्र बन गए हैं, खेल रहे थे, मजा ले रहे थे। तो ये आकर पहुंचता है, पूछता है तो अभी ये मित्र फॉरेन का जो मित्र इसको लेकर जाता है होटल में, और वहाँ तो लेट हो गए हैं तो आराम करते, सुबह बात करते हैं। सुबह उठता है, फॉरेन का मित्र देखता है ये है ही जगह पर, नीचे जाके ढूंढता है, तो देखता है वो उस होटल में लोगों के साथ काम कर रहा है, जो मेहमान आ रहे हैं उनके साथ बातचीत कर रहा है। तो उसको आश्चर्य होता है कि अरे ये तो सब लोगों के साथ घुल भी गया है। और अपने मित्र को कहता है कि तुम अच्छा सेट हो गए यहाँ पर, बोलता है मुझे तो बहुत मजा आ रहा है, अब बताओ मेरी नौकरी कौन सी है और मुझे क्या ट्रेनिंग देने वाले हैं। तो ये कहता है तुम्हें नौकरी भी मिल गई, तुम ट्रेन भी हो गए।
सो नौकरी भी मिल गई,
इसी होटल में मैनेजर की पोस्ट के लिए तुमको बुलाया था।
So that's where this ends, because the training was to always ask yourself, what is the question you'll ask? WAIN, what does it stand for? Who am I now? So with that small reminder, we will end this session. Thank you everyone. Happy talks. Thank you.